Hello everyone, welcome to Biology with MJ. So in this particular video, we are going to study about the chapter Livingworld of class 11th. Okay, so this is useful for both NEET aspirants and CBSE students. So both of these groups of students can tune in. So in the first class of this video, we are going to study about the first topic, that is what is living. Okay, and after what is living, we are going to study about growth, what all growth is about. You will understand it later, what in what context I am referring to. So let's begin. What is living? Okay, what do you understand by living? Which organism is known as a living organism? So when you think of something as a living organism, you'll think of certain features. For example, growth. Okay, that you will think, okay, that living organism must show growth. Only then I can consider it living. It must reproduce, okay? Because if an organism is living, you would think that it would also produce its progeny, that is its offspring. So it will also show reproduction. It would have the ability to sense the environment, okay? It would have the ability to sense the stimuli. What is, for example, if I am a living organism, if I touch something that is hot, automatically by reflex action, I will retract my hand. Why would I retract my hand? Because I have the ability to sense the environment, because I'm a living organism. So after touching the hot object, I retracted my hand, which can be considered as a suitable response when I touched that particular object. Okay, so ability to sense the environment and mount a suitable response is also one of the features, unique features of living organisms. The living organisms would also show metabolism. For example, inside each living organism, certain chemical reactions are taking place. These include anabolic reactions, catabolic reactions. Okay, both of anabolic and catabolic reactions comprise metabolism. We are going to study about metabolism in detail in later videos. So the organisms also have the ability to self-replicate. Okay, we can produce our progeny. Okay, we can replicate ourselves. So the bacteria can create their exact copies because they have the ability to reproduce by binary fission, which is an asexual mode of reproduction, and the human beings and the other animals reproduce by sexual mode of reproduction. Okay, but all of the living organisms have the ability to self-replicate. They can self-organize, they can interact with each other, and they also show emergence. So all of these are some unique properties of living organisms. And in this video, we are going to focus on property number 1, that is growth. Okay. So all living organisms grow. But what actually is growth? Growth is the increase in the number of cells or increase in the cell size as the organism moves through its life. Okay, if we see the life history of an organism increases its cell size, then it increases its number of cells. As the number of cells are increasing, its body mass is increasing. So all of this is referred to as growth. The organism is ultimately increasing in size, in its height, and this is an irreversible change, and this is known as growth. Now organisms जो होते हैं, they are of two types: unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Okay, so whenever we think of growth, whenever we define growth, we can define growth by twin characteristics. Twin means two. We are calling these characteristics as twin because they go hand in hand. Okay, so number 1 characteristic is increase in body mass or cell size, and the second characteristic is increase in the number of cells or individuals. Okay, we can look at from the point of view of a unicellular organism and multicellular organism. But first, let us consider a unicellular organism. So unicellular organism, for example, a bacteria reproduces by the method of asexual reproduction, also known as binary fission. Okay, so the bacteria will first increase its mass. Okay, it will increase its cytoplasmic content. It will replicate its genetic material. So what is happening here? Increase in the cell mass is occurring. So this is considered as growth. And ultimately the bacteria is dividing into two daughter cells. The parent cell is dividing into daughter cell 1 and daughter cell 2. So what is happening? Increase in cell number is taking place here. So this is also known as growth, because what is growth? Increase in the cell size, or we can also call it as increase in the cell mass. Okay, and increase in the number of cells. So both of these are happening here. So these two events are going hand in hand. They are occurring together. Okay. So that is why it is known, these are known as the twin characteristics of growth. Okay, now let us consider the multicellular organisms. So what is happening in multicellular organisms? In multicellular organism, as the organism is, for example, this plant, as it is aging, its height is increasing. How is its height increasing? Because the number of cells are increasing. So increase in the number of cells is taking place as the organism is growing, right? Increase in the number of cells is taking place, and increase in the body mass is taking place as a result of increase in the cell number. Because if the cell number is increasing, the body mass is also increasing. You can look here, the body mass is lesser as compared to the body mass of this fully grown plant, right? So these two things again are going hand in hand. That is why these are known as the twin characteristics of growth. Okay, so both unicellular and multicellular organisms are showing growth in such way, and these are known as the twin characteristics of growth. These are increase in body mass / cell size, and the second is increase in the number of cells or in the number of individuals. So we know that all living organisms grow, be it unicellular and multicellular, and both of these grow by cell division. Okay, what is the mode of reproduction? Cell division. The cells are, what is the mode of, growth? Cell division. They are all growing by the method of cell division. So unicellular organisms we have seen, and multicellular organisms we talked about plants. So what happens in multicellular organisms? They are of two types, plants and animals. Now plants, they grow throughout their lifespan. Okay, but animals only grow up to a certain age. Now why do plants grow throughout their lifespan? Because they have meristematic tissues which contain meristematic cells, and the meristematic cells are actively dividing cells. They are continuously dividing. So plants have certain regions which comprise meristematic tissues, which comprise meristematic cells, and meristematic cells are actively and continuously dividing cells. So hence we say that plants grow throughout their lifespan. Whereas if we talk about animals, they do not have meristematic cells. Hence, they only grow up to a certain age. For example, if you consider human beings, we all grow up to a certain height. Okay, we attain a certain height at a particular age, and beyond that, we do not further increase in height. Okay, so why is it happening? Because we only grow up to a certain age. But cell division, that does not mean that cell division is completely absent in animals. Whenever the animal gets injured or some cells are lost due to that injury, cell division is required in such cases in order to replace those lost cells. Okay, so in such cases, cell division will take place in animals. Okay, now moving on. Growth and reproduction in unicellular organisms are synonymous or mutually inclusive events. And in multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive. Now, what do we mean by mutually inclusive? So, two events are considered mutually inclusive when they cannot occur without each other. That means they both are occurring simultaneously. One event is not independent of the other event. Whereas mutually exclusive events means that they are independent of each other. Two events, when they are independent of each other, they are considered as mutually inclusive. But when two events are dependent on each other, and one event cannot happen without the other, those events are called mutually inclusive. Okay, so as we saw in the previous slide, the bacteria is dividing into two daughter cells. Okay, so here what is happening? Growth is happening because we are seeing increase in the number of cells. Okay, and also cell mass was increasing when the cell increased in size and ultimately divided into two daughter cells. So in between, the cell mass was also increasing. So cell mass and increase in cell mass and increase in number of cells, both can be considered as growth. But here the number of cells are increasing. This means the number of individuals are also increasing, because these two are daughter cells of the parent cell. This is the parent cell and these are daughter cells. So because the daughter cells are being produced from the parent cell, the number of individuals are also increasing. Increase in the number of individuals here is representing reproduction. Okay, so both growth and reproduction are taking place here. The same event which is being called as growth because of the increase in number of cells can also be called as reproduction because there is an increase in the number of individuals as well. This is the mode of reproduction of bacteria. Okay, so these are mutually inclusive or synonymous events. They are dependent on each other. They cannot be separated from each other. Okay, now if we consider multicellular organisms, in multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. So the animal will grow up to a certain age. Okay, after it attains a certain height, okay, and reaches a certain age, it will stop growing. If you consider the human being, from a child to an adult, it has grown. Okay, this is growth. Now here the growth has stopped. It will not further increase in height. This human being will not further increase in height. Now he will reproduce. Okay, it will find a partner, it will reproduce in order to produce offspring. Okay, so growth and reproduction are separate events in animals because growth has happened up to a certain age, after which the human being has reproduced. Okay, it has found a mate, it has reproduced, which the mode of reproduction is sexual reproduction, and it has produced a progeny. So here growth is not happening. Growth of the organism only happened up to a certain age, after which it gained reproductive maturity, and via the method of sexual reproduction, it gave rise to an offspring. Okay, so these two events are independent of each other in multicellular organisms. That is why they are known as mutually exclusive events. Okay, moving further. Now, non-living objects, they also show growth, because if we are considering increase in mass as a criterion of saying that growth is happening, this means that non-living objects are also growing. But there is one difference. Non-living objects grow extrinsically, whereas living organisms, they grow intrinsically. Okay? But first of all, let us understand how do non-living objects grow. So you can see mountains, boulders, sand mounds. How are they growing? You can see this picture. These are various sand mounds in a desert. So consider this sand mound. If more sand will come and get deposited over this sand mound, it will increase in size. Okay, further more sand will get deposited, it will further increase in size. So this increase in size is happening from the outside. Increase in size is happening, which means increase in mass is happening. Okay, increase in body mass, we can say, is happening. So this is also known as growth, because the twin characteristics of growth are increase in mass and increase in the number of individuals. So here increase in mass is happening, although extrinsically, that is from the outside something is getting deposited, because of which the mass is increasing. This is known as extrinsic growth, and non-living objects therefore show growth. Okay, and living organisms, they also grow, but they are growing intrinsically. That is, the materials are getting deposited inside the body of the organism. The cells are multiplying inside the body of the organism. Okay, the cells are accumulating materials on the inside, then they are dividing and producing more number of cells. The growth is happening on the inside, not from the outside. Okay, so that is the difference between the growth in the living and non-living organisms. But this is the only reason that growth cannot be taken as a defining property of living organisms. We cannot consider growth as defining property, because if it was a defining property, it would be happening exclusively in living organisms. But here we have also shown that growth is also happening in non-living organisms, which means that it cannot be considered as an exclusive or defining property of living organisms. Okay, just because of this reasons that non-living organisms are also showing growth. That is why we cannot call growth as a defining property of living organisms. It is a feature of living organisms, but it is not a defining property of living organisms. Now let us solve a question based on whatever we have studied. Growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive in unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms, both A and B, or none of the above. Now we have already studied the meaning of mutually inclusive. Two events, that is here growth and reproduction, these are the two events. Two events are called mutually inclusive when they are not independent of each other. They are occurring simultaneously, they are occurring together. And where does this happen? In unicellular organisms. For example, a parent bacteria is dividing into two daughter cells by the method of binary fission. Here, number of cells are increasing, increase in cell number and increase in the number of individuals. Both are occurring together here. So, increase in number of individuals is reproduction and increase in cell number can be defined as growth. So, both of these events here are the same events, because this same process can be called as growth also, it can be called as reproduction also. That means they are occurring simultaneously. So, the correct answer is option number 1, unicellular organisms. In multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. So, this option is incorrect. Option number C is also incorrect and D is also incorrect. The correct answer is option number 1, unicellular organisms. So, thank you very much, students. Hope you liked the video. In the coming sessions, we are going to study about more features of the living organisms, starting off with reproduction. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, do like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.